Okay, I've literally tried to make this video like 10 times. Like, this is the most stressful thing. Partly because I've had a really shit day and I am feeling not great. So, I really, really wanted to do a video for you guys. And I thought of a topic that I thought would be like really useful to some people. So just give it a thumbs up if you did find this video useful. If you didn't, well, sorry. I'm gonna try. Today the video is going to be on what is helpful or unhelpful to say to someone with an eating disorder, and I think this will be quite a good video for both people with an eating disorder to show to friends or family, like parents or boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever, if they're not quite getting it or supporting you to try and get better. And it's also for people who might know someone who has an eating disorder and might not know the correct way to approach it, because it is really difficult and certain things are more sensitive for some people than for others. Like, I know that like I get triggered by some really random comments, and I also get triggered by certain people more than others. Like, for example, my mother is one of my biggest triggers, and she can't really help that. Like, she can't just change who she is, like, and that's just something I kind of need to work on learning to deal with. But there are other things like comments that are said at the meal table and stuff like that, which can be dealt with and can be talked about and kind of negotiated on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to say if you're trying to recover or if you're in treatment or whatever it may be. So the first thing I'd say about unhelpful comments. Let's start with unhelpful comments. The first thing would be commenting in general at the meal table about the eating disordered person's meal or what they're eating, how much they're eating, blah, 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 blah. Personally, I think that's really, really unhelpful from someone with an eating disorder. I think that's can be really patronising. It can be really upsetting. If you're saying, oh, you're having too much, to someone with like anorexia or something, that can be like really, really incredibly triggering. And then if you're having too little, then that can also set off the eating disorder. But I think it's quite a difficult line to draw, because sometimes, for example, like if I was serving out my meal, which I do it myself, I don't let my parents do it, where I was like serving out my food or whatever and it was like not enough, then I would prefer them not to say anything at the table while I'm eating it, but to say something maybe afterwards and be like, I don't know if you really had enough, or something like that. Or maybe just like being like giving a bit of a prompt, like, you know, maybe you should have a little bit more. But not being like, oh, like you haven't got enough on your plate, what are you doing? You're trying to restrict, like accusing tones, like getting into arguments over it, getting angry. Those are like the things which are worse to do, because they just don't solve anything. And also constant questioning, which is something my mother does all the time, I don't think is a good idea, because it kind of increases the likelihood of you just lying, the person with the eating disorder just lying, and then it breaks down the trust between people. So this constant questioning, I don't think is helpful. Like, have you had lunch? What did you have? Tell me exactly what you had. Like, if you're like asking them about it and you're concerned and stuff like that, I think that's useful. But if you're like gonna get angry if they say that they've struggled with something that day and they haven't been able to have one of their snacks, they haven't been able to have their lunch, and then you get angry, well, they're gonna learn that they shouldn't tell you because you're gonna get angry. So they're gonna lie to you. So I think that this constant like questioning that a lot of parents do really, really isn't helpful. But like I said, with so many of these things, it's so hard to know where the line is, and like to know like what's unhelpful and what's caring, and like whether to say anything at all, whether you shouldn't say anything at all, whether you should, because if you don't, then it will seem like you don't care, stuff like that. So I completely understand that it is hard, because I have other friends, and obviously I have Lily with eating disorders, and even for me having one, like, I find it really difficult to know what's okay and what I should say and what I shouldn't. So it is really hard. I mean, it is. But Other things I don't think are helpful at the meal table is if the person with the eating disorder is like having something that you don't like, being like, oh, that's so gross, how can you eat that? That is so unhelpful, because most likely they're already really struggling with having to deal with the fact that they have to have this, or they're already struggling with a lot of things going on in their head, like, why are you eating this, blah 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 blah, you know. And like, it's really not helpful if someone else says, oh, why are you having that, that looks horrible, because they're already trying to do something they don't really want to do, and that's really not a good kind of comment to make. Some people find it also difficult when someone says, oh, that looks really good, that looks so nice, and keeps going on about how good it looks. I had one of my family friends who was staying with us for a week say that last week. I was just having like a bowl of yogurt and granola and honey and raisins, and she was like, oh my god, that looks delicious, that looks so good, and I just felt so uncomfortable. I can't quite put my finger on why. It just made me incredibly uncomfortable, and I was just like, please stop talking about the food. Like, I'm trying to eat, I've already got a lot of stuff going on in my head, I don't need you to kind of be like talking about it constantly while I'm trying to eat. Like, that's a rule we had at the EDU when I was at the Priory, was no talking about food at the table. And that was a rule that the parents or carers or whoever you lived with, when you went on leave or when you were in daycare and you would have meals or snacks at home, you were meant to adhere to those rules and you weren't meant to talk about food at the table. So yeah. Other things that I think are unhelpful: trying to force someone to eat something, being like, come on, you need to eat, you need to eat. It's, if you're a friend and you're trying to do that, it's just not helpful. Like, it's not really going to get you anywhere, to be honest. What else? Yeah, something which I find really, 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 really difficult is when I'm having a meal with my family, for example, dinner in the evening in the week, and we're having a meal together, and my brother doesn't finish his meal, and my mum's like, oh, darling, like, that's completely fine. But if I don't finish my meal, I get completely bollocked for it. So obviously there are some circumstances where it's hard not to do that, like you might have eaten something before, you might not like the food, but as a general rule, it's really not helpful to someone with an eating disorder if people around them aren't finishing their meal, because it feels to them as if like, oh, why do they get to not finish and I have to finish everything, and that kind of thing, and then it can make them feel like they're greedy, or, well, I don't know, that's how I feel when that kind of thing happens. For people with tendencies to binge, maybe like anorexia, binge purge subtype, bulimia, binge eating disorder, having a lot of food lying around and leftovers and stuff like that can be really difficult because it serves a temptation. I think that's also quite hard for people with straight out anorexia restrictive type, because you're kind of always like, the food, you know, having a lot of food around, basically having a lot of food around for someone with an eating disorder makes them uncomfortable. And that's something that's really hard to not do around Christmas time. Speaking of Christmas, I am getting a booklet on how to deal with Christmas from my dietitian. She's emailing it to me, and helpful tips for ways to cope with Christmas and tips for carers and parents and that kind of thing. So what I thought I might do is just talk a bit about that, because this video is turning into a little bit of a ramble instead. So maybe when I'm feeling more up to it, I'll do a better video, because I don't know if this is going to be completely fucking shit, to be honest. Yes, what else is unhelpful? Yes, other unhelpful things. Commenting on someone's body who has an eating disorder. Not helpful. Just don't do it. Even if it's like, oh, you look so, like, you look so good, you look so skinny. Like, no, don't do it, because it just reinforces all this shit, and it's like, well, they think I look good when I'm skinny, so I need to lose more weight, or I can't gain any weight. Say they're underweight and you say, oh, you look really good. Just don't say it. I mean, you might say, like, your makeup looks really good today, I really like what you're wearing, but don't comment on their body. Like, for God's sake, just don't do it. Saying, oh, you look like you've gained so much weight, you look so much better, that kind of thing, just no. You look so healthy, no. Really has bad connotations saying someone looks healthy. It really sets off a lot of shit. If you have an eating disorder, someone says you look healthy. I've had this said to me so many times. It's like, I'm not fucking healthy. Like, you don't know half of what's going on in my head. Like, don't say that shit. And obviously people, when they say that, like, most of the time just have no idea that what they're saying has that kind of an impact. And I do get that. Obviously I get that. Like I said, I know people with eating disorders, and sometimes I get things wrong. Sometimes I say things wrong, and it's hard. But it is something that constantly, like, it happens to me all the time. Like, people coming to my body, like, people being like, oh, you look so good, like, I'm so jealous of your figure, and they know I have an eating disorder. Like, they know what I do to myself, and it's just like, you're basically saying that what I do is good. Like, you're saying that me, like, you know, doing whatever behaviours, which I'm not going to go into, but, like, you're kind of, like, saying that's okay. And yeah, that happened to me last weekend. I was wearing a crop top, and my friend was like, I'm so jealous of your figure, like, you're so skinny, whatever. And I was like, you know full well I have an eating disorder, and this is really, really not appropriate for you to say that kind of stuff. Also, I think a lot of people have difficulty with, like, when they're on a weight gain diet or when they're gaining weight in treatment, and lots of people say to them, oh, you look really healthy, you look really good, stuff like that. It's just better, you know, in short, it's just better not to comment on it at all, in my opinion. I mean, other people might feel differently. Other people with eating disorders might feel differently, and you can't just take it from me. But this is just my view on it. I think it's really not cool. Other actions that are unhelpful. Watching someone with an eating disorder while they're eating. Watching them. Just don't do it. And this happens to me all the time. My friends do that. My family does that. It's just don't do it. Okay, I found some other things online because I was really running out of ideas and I'm just being really shitty and useless. Okay, so other things you shouldn't say are that. Like, don't say, just don't ever say this, oh, you have an eating disorder. You're not even that skinny though. Just, I'm not even going to go into that because that just fucks me off so much. It's like, firstly, it's not about the weight. It's really not fucking about the weight. And that makes me so angry. And second of all, like, how do you know whether they're underweight or not? Like, anyway, there are so many reasons why you shouldn't say that. Okay, I found some other things. Other than the things I've already covered so far. Something I found online, which someone has written, was don't try and be their therapist to someone with an eating disorder. I think that's kind of quite self-explanatory. Another thing, don't offer simple solutions, like if you would just eat this, it would be fine. If you would just stop throwing up, it would be fine. It's not simple, it's a very complex mental disorder, which can take years to recover from. So a simple solution isn't gonna work. Another thing, which my parents cannot seem to do, don't expect an instant recovery. It's not just a magic fix. It doesn't just go like this. We don't just have a pill. Like, oh, wow, you're magically better. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I wish it did. This is a really important one. If you're the friend of someone with an eating disorder, obviously you may get concerned sometimes. A lot of the time. You may be really concerned. You may be worried. I worry all the fucking time about other people and if they've got mental disorders and shit going on, you know, I worry a lot. But something that's really not cool to do is gossip about it to other people and tell other people about it. I don't really know what else to say on that. Just don't do that. And one more thing is don't just expect it to go away on its own, like it's a phase or whatever. My cousin is suffering from anorexia and her siblings just think it's just a phase and it's going to go away. And, you know, most of the time, well, I don't know, it's not. You know, if you've got an eating disorder, it's not just a phase. So, yeah. I don't know if this video seemed quite angry and accusing, and I really didn't mean it to be, but like some of this stuff just really pisses me off, and like I do understand that it's really hard to get it if you haven't been through it, to understand an eating disorder or to be supportive and stuff like that. I do understand that, but at the same time, like if you're the parent or close friend or girlfriend or boyfriend of someone with an eating disorder, you should really be kind of looking this stuff up and like looking at what's helpful to say and talking to them about what's helpful to say and what's not helpful to say and the things you can do to help and stuff like that. And I feel like for me there's like a real lack of that. Like my parents never looked it up. My parents never really got that involved in like thinking about what might be helpful or unhelpful for me. They went to some carers groups, but they didn't really take that much from it. They went to like 2 carers groups and didn't go to any more. And it's frustrating because you need people around you to support you, because this kind of thing is really fucking hard to beat, and you need people who are supportive. And I don't really know what else to say. It's making me sad because it's fucking shit, this whole thing. Like, it's so shit, and, you know, no one fucking deserves to go through this. And all my love, honestly, to anyone going through this right now, to all of you. And I'll link my Tumblr down there. You can send me a message anytime. If you message me on YouTube, I'm really unlikely to reply. I'm really, really bad with replying on YouTube. So preferably ask me on Tumblr. And you can do it anonymously if you don't have a Tumblr. Just say in response to your video or whatever. Anyway, I hope this video was okay. I'm getting kind of worried now that it might have like annoyed people or something. And I hope it was helpful in some way. I can always do some kind of similar videos like this if you guys want. Just let me know. Yeah, lots of love. Okay.